Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Keen Learning, and this is TalkPix. And today, we're gonna go over which is a better Chinese tech stock, Alibaba or Tencent. And basically, these are two of Chinese top tech companies. Alibaba has a really high e-commerce and cloud servicing company, while Tencent, on the other hand, is a little more software based, as well as actually like media streaming as well. And so, just we're going to go over this article really quick, just highlighting a few of the main points. And as we can see here, Alibaba is losing its momentum, right? So the revenue only rose by 41%, while its commerce rose by 42%, right? Which is, again, really good numbers. But adjusted with their earnings, it only increased by 23%. And so what they're basically saying is that it seems like Alibaba's overall growth seems to be slowing down, which isn't really what you want to be seeing for like an e-commerce company, which, has a lot of potential and has a lot of growth potential to it. But on the other hand, we still have Tencent, right? So both these companies are facing huge regulatory Chinese government, laws and stuff like that they're running into, and Tencent's also having this problem, right? So revenue increasing 25% year over year. We're going to go more into depth on the actual numbers a little bit later, but as we kind of see here, the government has really tight regulatory in like the Alipay as well as like the WeChat and the WeChat Pay, right? So basically, both these valuations put that overall like Alibaba trades at only 20 times, but Tencent is a little bit more at a premium of a PDE at 26. As this guy was saying, either stock he doesn't really want to trade it right now, but if you were to pick one over the other, he would pick Tencent over diversification. And we're going to go over why I think Tencent could also be really good in splitting your like basically position between Alibaba and Tencent. And so again, as I was saying, with the overall statistics, we're really into like fundamentals and things like that. So for Tencent, we see they're trading at a really high premium, even for a really high growth company. We see trading PD at like 20, for PD at 24. But the things that do worry me a little bit are the price of sales at 7.2 and price to book at 4.5. Right. So typically we want price to book at like 3 or under, and sales, we really want kind of like the same thing there. Like they're under, but if it's a little bit more, it's not necessarily bad. It's just meaning that investors think that trading at a slightly higher premium, and they're willing to pay for that based on what potential growth that this company has. As we see, on the other hand, Alibaba price of sales is only at 3.8, so about 50% less of what Tencent is. And both forward and trailing PDE at under 20, and forward is actually lower than what their trailing is, which is really good in terms of overall revenue growth and EPS. And their actual price to book is just a tad bit under 3. Getting into what that article said about their user revenue. As we can see here, Alibaba's user count, it's really slowed down. We're talking about going around 50% gains, 25% gains, but from 2019 to 2020, we only saw like a user count gain of that's maybe like 1 to 2%, right? And so this is like something that really slowed it down. But what I did want to point out is that even though that their user growth has like slowed down a lot, the revenue has been going crazy, right? So we see 11 to 20 to 34, and we see again 50% gain, really solid. Another over 50% gain, but then we see huge jump from 2020 to 2019 to 2020, right? From 376 to 509, you're looking almost 75%, even though their actual user count has not been going up as much. So this basically just means that Alibaba is making a lot more money, even though their actual growth isn't having that much. They're just making really good margins on like basically their users. Tencent, on the other hand, we don't really have numbers on their actual user growth, but in terms of revenue growth, these numbers are just not as enticing. We have 78,102, 151, 236, but then we go from 312 to 377, which really isn't that high growth in revenue. And actually, what we see here in Tencent's last earnings that actually came out just 4 days ago on November 10th, they basically announced that they missed their EPS by 3 cents, and they had a revenue surprise of by missing by 417 million, right? So even though their actual revenue was 22 billion, basically the reason why I'm pointing this out is that Tencent and Alibaba, while they are very different in what they do, they're both, e-commerce, and they both have a lot of online, support through like their user accounts. And so I'm just pointing this out because Alibaba does have the earnings coming out very soon, on November 18th. And for those of you guys who are playing this for like that growth for the long term, I would say for Alibaba to like basically not trade it into earnings. While if you guys are more on like a technical standpoint, a lot of you will probably say that Alibaba actually has pretty good, technical setup leading into their earnings. They do have, their, very three large major moving averages here, like 20, 15, 75, circling at like 170. I think if they can break through that 170 before, the November 18th, within like, Monday and Tuesday of this week, I believe that earnings could actually be pretty positive for them, with their overall revenue growth. And so if you guys are just playing this for the long term, put the money in and just let it grow. There's been some numbers coming out that Alibaba is being sold by some huge investors, but I honestly just think that as of right now, they're just selling that to start a position in Tencent. And if I were you guys, I would actually do about a 50-50 split into Tencent and Alibaba, because Tencent does have that better diversification, and that 65% of it is mostly in like that software engineering, and while 35% is more e-commerce, while Alibaba is more switched. And so if you guys are thinking about like a company which has more growth potential, I honestly couldn't tell you. From a fundamental standpoint, if you guys were looking for like 12.5% returns on a company, even with relatively conservative margins, Alibaba should be valued easily like 240. Tencent, on the other hand, easily valued like 90 to $100. And so just because of this, I think it's actually really good to hold both right now. That being said, just be careful of Chinese regulatory, practices that are going on right now, because it could always be going bad, and the numbers that the Chinese government are putting out and these companies are putting out, they may or may not be true. But right now Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger have doubled down on Alibaba when they've gotten under 150. And I'm going to put my money where smart money is as well. So that being said, that's basically the end of this video. If you guys have any questions, leave them down below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.